I think the Ballade is an interesting piece because it's something, as an Englishman, for example, I'd never heard of the Ballade, and it's not, and even then I was, it was just a footnote. It was, and yet here it's really seen as one of his major pieces. And actually, if you then rewind and look at the repertoire of the great pianists of the turn of the century, they all had the Ballade in there. I mean, I remember us talking to David Duval, who wrote that wonderful book on Horowitz, and he was saying, "Oh yes, I remember one evening Horowitz started talking about the Grieg Ballade, and he said he sat down and he hadn't played it for 50 years, and he sat down and played half of the piece really slowly, talking about, and he was saying, everybody had this piece in their repertoire. This was so important, and it disappeared."
With the Ballade, the greatest challenge is probably being able to formulate a large-scale structure and follow it all the way through.
Yes.
Particularly the last third of the piece, yes. which is extremely directional.
And apart from being, ferociously difficult particularly that last third. It's technically is a real challenge. But actually building the piece up so that it makes logical sense. And in fact, listening to the various different recordings as we have done when we've been looking at this, one thing that did strike me is that pianists tend to either be great at the first half of the piece or the second half of the piece, and it's very hard to weld those two together. And it's extraordinarily difficult. And actually building this up so that this set of variations, which is essentially. It is that, but it has to have a tremendously long line, and it has to sing in such long lines, and that is so hard when you look at what you have.
I think the key to it is probably not to consider it theme and variation as such,
yes.
but consider it to be a set of variations on a theme which can be something else than the actual melody.
Yes.
For instance, the falling character of the theme is something which can be used as a concept of development in larger sections, larger groups of the piece, which
yes.
is certainly the way I'm thinking about it.
Yes, I think that's a wonderful way of thinking. I think that's, and I think that makes perfect sense. And it's, I think it's a real challenge. I think musically, this piece is such an incredible challenge. I really hope that more people outside of Norway are going to look at this piece because it is wonderful, and it's, but it's one hell of a challenge. whole sound production thing is very interesting because it's something that came out very early on. I mean, and the fact that you're dealing with an athletic, young, strong pianist. I mean, and this guy who was clearly not, physically not in great shape, and not that far away from the end of his days, and that. That was a real question that came up because and also on this instrument, because a modern instrument, you can push in a lot into these things. You can really push hard on a modern instrument, but this one, if you push too hard, it bites your hand off. It's sort of it, and if you do too little, it's no good just doing less. You can't just do the same and less of, because then that doesn't work. Because we have to find this tremendous intensity, this consistent intensity, but by doing that without physical volume.
I wouldn't say that this has altered my approach to sound production in general, but it's been an incredibly rewarding process of actually trying to reproduce someone else's sound, and it makes you aware of a whole lot of things, and the way things it makes you consider a whole lot of things differently when it comes to the physical approach.